Before we get into this, real quick, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. That stuff really helps the algorithm push stories like this to you. All right, turn the lights down. Let the shadows creep in. I was 17 years old when I lived through the worst night of my life. I've carried it around in my head for years, replaying it over and over, but I never told the whole story. Not to my parents, not to my friends, not even when I tried therapy for a short while. It's been almost 8 years now, and I think I'm finally ready to say it out loud. Maybe saying it will loosen its grip on me. Maybe it won't. Either way, here it is. My name is Haley Matthews. I grew up in Mentor, Ohio. Quiet streets, trimmed lawns, neighbors who wave even if they don't know your name. In the summer, you hear sprinklers clicking on and off and kids riding bikes until the streetlights come on. Nothing ever really happens there. And that's what makes it so easy to feel safe. Too easy. That night I was babysitting for the Parkers, a family who lived one street over from mine. I'd watched their daughter, Zoe, plenty of times before. She was 5 years old, small for her age, shy at first but sweet once she warmed up. She loved unicorns, peanut butter crackers, and wearing socks that never matched. She had this tiny laugh that sounded like she was trying not to laugh too loud. Her parents were nice enough, a little strict, a little tense, but they paid well and never stayed out late. So when they asked if I could watch Zoe while they went to a charity dinner about half an hour away, I didn't hesitate. They said they'd be back around midnight. Easy money. I got there at 6:30 p.m. Mrs. Parker walked me through everything like always. Dinner was already made and sitting on the counter. 1 hour of cartoons. Bedtime at 8:30 sharp. Phones on in case of emergencies, but she said I probably wouldn't need to call. She's an angel when she's not overtired, she added with a tight smile. I waved goodbye as they left, the front door clicking shut behind them. At first, the night was completely normal. Zoe ate her mac and cheese, spilled juice on the carpet, laughed about it like it was the funniest thing ever, and then curled up next to me on the couch to watch cartoons. Around 8:20, I helped her brush her teeth and walked her upstairs to bed. Her room was pink and cozy. A unicorn lamp glowed softly on her nightstand. Glow-in-the-dark stars were stuck to the ceiling. She asked me to read Goodnight Moon. I read it once, then again. She fell asleep halfway through the second time, hugging her stuffed giraffe like it was the most important thing in the world. By a little after 9:00, I was downstairs again, stretched out on the Parker's big sectional couch, hoodie pulled over my hands, phone glowing in the dark. I was scrolling TikTok, texting my best friend Emma about some stupid school drama. I remember thinking how calm everything felt. Quiet, clean, safe. That's the thing about nights like this. They never feel wrong at first. The first sign was a sound. It was faint, almost nothing. A soft click from upstairs like a door gently closing. I paused my video and listened. Nothing else followed. Zoe had been asleep for at least 30 minutes and she slept like a rock. I told myself it was just the house settling. Old homes make noises. Everyone knows that. A few minutes passed. Then I heard footsteps, slow ones, just a couple directly above me. My stomach tightened. I muted my phone and sat up straight. The Parkers didn't have pets. No dog, no cat, just Zoe. I sat there barely breathing, waiting to hear more. The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed felt heavier than the noise, thick, pressed in on my ears. I tried to laugh it off. I told myself I was being paranoid. Still, I decided to check on Zoe, just to be sure. I climbed the stairs quietly, each step feeling louder than it should have. Zoe's room was at the end of the hall. When I reached for the door, my hand froze. It was open wider than I had left it. I knew for a fact I'd left it barely cracked. Just enough to hear her if she woke up. Now it was halfway open. I leaned in slowly. Zoe was still asleep, curled up under her blanket, giraffe tucked under her chin. The unicorn lamp glowed like always. Nothing looked disturbed. No shadows moving. No strange sounds. I felt stupid for letting my imagination get the best of me. I gently closed the door back to the exact position it had been in before and turned around to head downstairs. That's when I noticed the attic pull string. The Parkers had one of those fold-down attic doors in the hallway ceiling. The string usually hung just high enough that you barely noticed it. Now it was lower, way lower, and it was moving. Not swinging wildly, just swaying slightly, like it had been touched, like it had been pulled and let go. I stood there staring at it, my heart thudding in my ears. I told myself it was air pressure. A draft, anything but what my brain was trying to picture. I should have called someone right then. My dad, the Parkers, anyone. Instead, I went back downstairs. At 9:43 p.m., the baby monitor crackled to life. Static hissed through it suddenly, loud enough to make me jump. It sat on the coffee table right in front of me. The sound cut out just as fast as it started, then a whisper came through. "Zoe." I swear my whole body locked up. I stared at the monitor like it was alive. Static followed again, then silence. My hands were shaking when I grabbed it. I ran upstairs, not quietly this time. Adrenaline took over. When I reached Zoe's room, I flung the door open. She was still asleep. But the attic string was fully pulled down now, and the attic door was open. I backed away from the hallway ceiling like it might lunge at me. The attic door hung open just a few inches, but it felt wider than that, like it was watching me, waiting. I didn't hear anything coming from up there. No breathing, no movement. Just that open space above my head. I didn't have a weapon. I didn't have a plan. I was 17 years old, wearing fuzzy socks and an oversized hoodie, standing in someone else's house with a 5-year-old sleeping down the hall. And somewhere above me, someone might be hiding. I ran into Zoe's room and shut the door as quietly as I could, then locked it. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I tried to type my passcode and messed it up twice. I texted Emma, "Someone S in the house. I think they're in the attic, not joking." She replied instantly, "Call 911. Now, that's when I heard the footsteps again. They were closer this time, slow, heavy. Right outside Zoe's door. I grabbed her little desk chair and shoved it under the doorknob, wedging it as tight as I could. My breathing was loud in my ears. I leaned down and whispered her name, begging her not to wake up. She stirred, turned over, but didn't fully wake. I dialed 911 with shaking fingers and whispered everything into the phone. The address, the attic, the footsteps. The dispatcher told me to stay on the line and not leave the room. Officers were already on the way. Then the doorknob turned. I don't even remember screaming. It came out like a broken sound, half breath, half panic. The chair rattled but held. The knob twisted again, harder this time. Then something slammed into the door like a shoulder. Zoe woke up crying. I wrapped my arm around her and whispered that everything was okay, even though nothing was okay. I told the dispatcher the person was still there. I couldn't stop talking. My words didn't even make sense anymore. And then silence. No more pressure on the door, no footsteps, just quiet. The dispatcher said police were 2 blocks away. I waited, crouched beside Zoe's bed, holding her hand while she sobbed into my hoodie. Then I heard the footsteps retreating down the hall. Slow, careful, followed by a creak above us. He went back into the attic. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I didn't even blink. Less than a minute later, the front door slammed open and voices shouted, "Police!" I screamed back. They told me to unlock the door slowly and step out. By the time they escorted us outside, 5 officers were already tearing through the house. Another stayed with me and Zoe on the front lawn. I was shaking so hard my teeth were chattering. I couldn't answer most of their questions. I just kept staring up at the roof. Eventually, one officer came down holding something. A phone. It wasn't the Parkers. It was old, a flip phone, scratched, worn, and the wallpaper was a photo of Zoe, taken from outside her bedroom window. That's when I completely broke down. They never found him. The attic was empty when they searched it. No trap door, no ladder, just insulation and beams. But they did find signs someone had been living there. Food wrappers, water bottles, blankets, and children's clothes, not just Zoe's size. Smaller, bigger, several different sizes. The Parkers moved out a month later. I never babysat again. I still hear that whisper sometimes. Zoe, if this story got to you, do me a favor, like the video, share it. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. Because this wasn't the only night that taught me some kids know things we don't. I used to think kids were just weird sometimes. That strange drawings, creepy comments, or imaginary friends were just phases, stuff they'd grow out of. I don't believe that anymore. Not after what happened in Woodridge, Illinois. Not after the night I babysat Lily Caldwell. I was 21 then, a broke college junior picking up babysitting gigs around the suburbs to cover rent and groceries. I'd worked with a lot of families by that point, so when I got a last-minute call asking if I was available that night, I didn't hesitate. The dad sounded stressed. His name was Evan Caldwell. He said their usual sitter had canceled, and his sister had just gone into labor up in Rockford. They needed to leave fast. "We don't usually leave her with someone new," he said, voice tight. "But this is kind of an emergency." I told him it was fine. He gave me the address and said his daughter was quiet, easy, no trouble at all. When I pulled into their neighborhood, something felt off right away. Woodridge is usually calm, but this street felt empty in a way that didn't make sense. No kids playing, no porch lights, no dogs barking, just silence. The house sat at the end of a cul-de-sac, a pale yellow two-story with dead leaves piled along the steps. It looked clean, too clean, like no one really lived there. Evan opened the door. He was mid-30s, polite but jittery, dark circles under his eyes like he hadn't slept in days. "Thanks for coming," he said quickly. "Renee's upstairs getting Lily ready." Inside, the house felt hollow. Bare walls, almost no furniture. A couch, a lamp, a coffee table, no family photos, no toys, no mess. It reminded me of a house staged for sale, waiting for people who never showed up. "She's shy," Evan said, rubbing his hands together. "She's 7, doesn't talk much. Likes to draw." Renee came down the stairs holding Lily's hand. Lily didn't look sick, just pale. Her blonde hair was thin and messy, and her eyes were way too big for her face. She didn't say hello. She just stepped forward and handed me a folded piece of paper. It was a drawing, the house, this house, and in one of the windows a black stick figure, no face. Just a wide white smile and 2 empty circles where eyes should be. Before I could say anything, Renee snatched it from Lily's hands and shoved it into her purse. "She draws weird stuff," she said with a strained smile. "Just ignore it." They gave me the basics, snacks in the fridge, bedtime at 9:30, no allergies. Then they left, no hugs, no goodbye kisses. Just a rushed wave and the sound of their car pulling away. Lily stood in the living room staring at the door long after they were gone. I asked if she wanted to watch a movie. She didn't answer. Asked if she was hungry. She shook her head. Then she sat on the carpet and pulled crayons and paper from under the coffee table. She started drawing fast, hard, like she was trying to get something out. I sat on the couch behind her, texting my roommate, trying to ignore the tight feeling in my chest. After a few minutes, I leaned forward and asked what she was drawing. "My face," she said without looking up. I swallowed. "Whose face?" She didn't answer. By 8 o'clock, I was already counting the minutes. Nothing had happened, but the house felt wrong. Lily barely moved. She just kept drawing, page after page, occasionally glancing toward the hallway or the kitchen window like she was waiting for something. At one point, I thought I heard a soft knock upstairs. When I looked, Lily was still sitting there, calm as ever. Eventually, she stood up and walked toward the hallway without a word. I heard her footsteps on the stairs. I waited a minute, then another. When she didn't come back, I followed. She was sitting at the end of the upstairs hallway, in front of a small square door near the floor. One of those crawl space doors you only see in old houses. It looked like it hadn't been opened in years. She was staring at it. "Lily," I said, "what are you doing?" "She's knocking," she whispered. I stopped cold. "Who is?" She pointed at the door. "You have to say no," she said. "You can't say yes." The hallway felt colder, not just chilly. Wrong. Lily stood up and walked back to her room like nothing had happened. I stayed there staring at the door, half expecting it to move. Downstairs, Lily started drawing again. I tried not to look, but I couldn't help it. She was drawing the crawl space door. And the same faceless woman. This time the door was open. At 9:30 I told her it was bedtime. She didn't argue. She climbed into bed and pulled the covers up. I asked if she wanted a story. She shook her head. "She watches me sleep," Lily whispered. "Don't let her in." I didn't know what to say. I turned on the nightlight and left the room. Downstairs, I sat on the couch staring at the front door, checking the time every couple of minutes. 9:41, 9:43, 9:47. At 9:52, 3 slow knocks echoed from upstairs, not from Lily's door, from the hallway, and that's when I knew something was already inside the house. The knocks didn't sound loud, they weren't angry, that was the worst part, they were soft, careful. Like whoever was doing it didn't want to scare anyone, like they were being polite. I froze on the couch, phone in my hand, screen glowing. I told myself it was the house settling. Old pipes. Air pressure, anything but what Lily said. Then the knocks came again, 3 of them, same rhythm, same spot upstairs. I stood up slowly and whispered Lily's name, even though I knew she was supposed to be in bed. I waited for her to answer. Nothing. I grabbed the biggest thing I could find in the kitchen, which was a metal flashlight, and started up the stairs. Every step creaked under my feet. The hallway light was off, but Lily's nightlight spilled a soft yellow glow onto the carpet. The crawl space door was open, just a few inches, enough to see darkness behind it. My heart started pounding so hard it hurt. I crouched down and stared at the opening. It smelled wrong, like damp wood and something old, something that hadn't been cleaned in a long time. I whispered Lily's name again, louder this time. She answered from behind me. "She asked again," Lily said. I spun around so fast I almost fell. Lily was standing at the top of the stairs, rubbing her eyes like she'd just woken up. "Asked what?" I said. "If she can come out," Lily whispered. "She does that when she's tired of crawling." My mouth went dry. "Who is she, Lily?" Lily looked past me toward the open door. "She lives there," she said. "She's been there since before me." I told Lily to go back to her room. She didn't argue. She just nodded and crawled back into bed like this was normal. Like kids telling you monsters live in the walls was no big deal. I shut the crawl space door and twisted the latch as tight as I could. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely turn it. Then I dragged a small table in front of it, even though I knew that wouldn't stop anything if it really wanted to get out. Back downstairs, I sat on the couch and called Evan, straight to voicemail. I tried Renee. Nothing. At 10:11, the knocking started again. This time it wasn't upstairs, it was coming from behind the wall, right behind the couch. I jumped up, heart racing, and pressed my ear against the wall. The sound moved. Slow scratches like fingernails dragging across wood, following me. I backed away and locked myself in the bathroom, calling 911 with shaking fingers. I whispered everything: the crawl space, the knocking, the scratching. The dispatcher told me to stay calm and stay on the line. That's when Lily screamed. I ran upstairs without thinking. Her bedroom door was open. The nightlight was flickering. Lily was sitting up in bed, pointing at the ceiling. "She said you almost said yes," Lily cried. "She doesn't like that." The scratching started again, above us. inside the ceiling. Something shifted. Dust fell onto the carpet. The crawl space latch rattled down the hall. I grabbed Lily and held her tight. I told the dispatcher we were upstairs and something was moving in the walls. She said officers were already on the way. Then a voice whispered from the hallway, not loud, not scary, soft. "Please," Lily buried her face into my shoulder. "Don't answer," she sobbed. "That's how she gets you." The crawl space door banged once, hard, then again, and then everything stopped. Dead silence. Police arrived minutes later. They searched every room. The attic, the crawl space, the walls. They found muddy handprints inside the crawl space, long strands of hair, food wrappers, and a mattress stuffed behind insulation. No one was there. Evan and Renee came home hours later, pale and shaking. They didn't act surprised, not really. They just thanked me over and over and paid me extra cash without meeting my eyes. As I left, Lily handed me one last drawing. It showed the crawl space door closed, and a woman on the outside, smiling. If this story made your skin crawl, don't forget to like the video, share it with someone who loves true horror, and hit subscribe so you never miss what's coming next. Because Lily wasn't the last kid who warned me, and I didn't always listen. I told myself I was done after Lily. I said it out loud. I promised myself I wouldn't take another babysitting job. Not for any amount of money. Not for friends of friends. Not for emergencies. I needed the cash, sure, but sleep was starting to matter more. So did feeling safe in my own skin. That promise lasted 3 weeks. Rent was due. My car needed repairs. And when a message came in from a woman named Corinne asking if I could watch her son for just one evening, I ignored it at first. Then she followed up, said her husband worked nights, said her son was easy, said he slept early, said they lived close by. I told myself one more time wouldn't hurt. That's how I ended up in a small blue house on the edge of town, holding a paper bag of fast food and already wishing I'd stayed home. Corinne met me at the door. She was friendly, tired but friendly. The kind of tired that sinks into your shoulders and never really leaves. She thanked me too many times, apologized too much. Her son Micah stood behind her half-hidden, holding a stuffed rabbit with one ear missing. Micah was 6, skinny, quiet, big eyes again. I was starting to notice a pattern. "He doesn't talk much," Corinne said, "but he's sweet, just likes his routines." I nodded, pretending that didn't make my stomach tighten. The house was normal, lived in, toys scattered. Family photos on the walls, nothing staged, nothing hollow. That alone made me relax a little. Corinne showed me Micah's room, small bed, nightlight shaped like a moon, a music box on the dresser. "He needs this," she said, tapping the music box. "It helps him sleep." I asked what it played. She hesitated just for a second. "A lullaby," she said. "His favorite." Corinne left around 7. Micah sat on the floor pushing a toy car back and forth, not making a sound. I tried small talk, asked about school, favorite cartoons, favorite food. He didn't answer. At 7:30 he stood up on his own and walked to his room. "Is it bedtime already?" I asked. He nodded. I followed him down the hallway. He climbed into bed and pulled the covers up to his chin. Then he pointed at the music box. "Please," he whispered. That was the first word I'd heard him say. I wound the music box. The tune that came out was slow, soft, almost too slow. It didn't sound happy. It didn't sound sad either. It just dragged, like it didn't want to end. Micah's eyes closed instantly. I sat in the living room scrolling on my phone, listening to the faint music through the wall. It played for about 2 minutes, then stopped. I thought that was it. Then it started again. Same tune. Same pace. I frowned and checked the time, 8:04. I went back down the hall. The music box was playing on its own. I turned it off. Micah didn't move. Back in the living room, I tried to shake the uneasy feeling crawling up my spine. Old houses made noise. Music boxes could unwind weirdly. That was normal. At 8:20 it started again. This time Micah was sitting up when I walked in. His eyes were open, wide. "She likes it," he said. I swallowed. "Who likes it, buddy?" He pointed at the corner of the ceiling. I didn't look. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me already knew I wouldn't like what I saw. I turned the music box off again and told Micah it was time to sleep. He lay back down, still staring at that same corner. "She sings back," he whispered. I didn't ask what that meant. I went back to the living room and turned the TV on louder than usual. At 9:15 I heard humming, not from the TV, from the hallway. It matched the tune of the music box, perfectly. My heart started racing. I muted the TV and held my breath. The humming kept going, slow, soft, close. I stood up and crept toward the hallway. Micah's door was open now. The nightlight flickered. The humming was coming from inside his room. I stepped to the doorway. Micah was asleep. The music box was closed. The humming was coming from the closet. I stood there frozen, listening as the sound drifted through the crack in the closet door. It wasn't loud. It wasn't rushed. It sounded patient. Like whoever was humming had all the time in the world. I backed away and pulled the door shut quietly. From inside the room, Micah whispered, "Don't stop it." I didn't answer. I locked myself in the bathroom and texted Corinne, telling her Micah was having trouble sleeping and asking when she'd be home. No response. The humming stopped. For a few seconds I thought maybe I'd imagined everything. Then the music box started playing again, louder this time, and someone began humming along, right outside the bathroom door. I pressed my back against the bathroom wall and slid down until I was sitting on the cold tile. My phone was clenched so tight my fingers hurt. The humming outside the door wasn't rushed. It didn't sound angry, it sounded calm, like it knew I wasn't going anywhere. The music box kept playing. I covered my ears, but it didn't help. The sound felt like it was inside my head, not coming from the room. My stomach twisted, and I fought the urge to cry. I didn't want Micah to hear me panic. I didn't want whatever was out there to know I was scared. Then the humming stopped. The music box clicked once and went quiet. I waited. 10 seconds, 20, a full minute, nothing. I slowly stood up and unlocked the bathroom door. I cracked it open just enough to look into the hallway. The light was still on. Micah's door was still open. Everything looked normal. I stepped out and walked toward his room, every nerve screaming at me to turn around. When I reached the doorway, I stopped. Micah was sitting straight up in bed. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the closet. "It doesn't like when you hide," he said softly. My mouth felt dry. "Micah, who does?" He turned his head and looked at me. His eyes looked different now. Not sleepy. Not scared, just flat. "She's behind you," he said. I spun around. Nothing was there. But the air felt heavy, thick, like walking into a room where someone had just been standing too close. The closet door creaked open by itself, just a few inches. The humming came back, louder now, right there, inside the room. I grabbed Micah out of bed and held him tight. His body felt cold, too cold. He wrapped his arms around my neck and whispered, "Don't let her finish the song." The closet door opened wider. I didn't think, I ran. I carried Micah down the hall, down the stairs, straight to the front door. My hands fumbled with the lock. The humming followed us, drifting down the stairs like it was floating. The door finally opened, and cold night air rushed in. The humming stopped. I didn't stop running until we were halfway down the driveway. I called 911 with one hand and held Micah with the other. I told them there was someone in the house. I didn't know who, I didn't know how. Micah buried his face into my shoulder. "She doesn't like outside," he whispered. Police arrived fast. 2 cars. Lights flashing. They went into the house while we waited in the yard. An officer wrapped Micah in a blanket and asked him questions. Micah didn't answer. They searched the house top to bottom. No signs of forced entry. No one hiding. No open windows. No unlocked doors. Then one officer called us inside. They had found the closet. The back panel had been removed. Behind it was a narrow space between the walls, just big enough for someone to crawl through. They found scratch marks, old food wrappers, and a small speaker hidden behind the insulation. Someone had been playing the lullaby, but that wasn't the worst part. They also found handprints on the wall, high up, near the ceiling, too high for a child. Karen arrived an hour later, crying and apologizing, saying she had no idea. She said Micah had been hearing the song for months, that he'd started humming it before he could even talk right. She said she thought it was just an imaginary thing. Micah looked up at her and said, "She moved now." Karen froze. They never found anyone. The police said maybe a former tenant, maybe a prank, maybe someone squatting and watching, but I know better. As I left that night, Micah waved at me from the porch. "She'll find a new song," he said. I didn't babysit again for a long time after that. And to this day, whenever I hear a lullaby playing too slow, too soft, I turn it off. If this story messed with your head, make sure you like the video. Share it with someone who loves real horror, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. Because Micah wasn't the last kid who heard something no one else could. By the time the next job came along, I had rules. No old houses, no crawl spaces, no attics, and no kids who talked about things that weren't there. I broke every single one of those rules the night I met Beatrice. The message came from a family friend. Said her aunt needed help watching her daughter for a few hours. Good neighborhood, big house, good pay. I asked the questions I'd learned to ask. Any pets, any medical issues, any weird habits. "She's a little imaginative," the text said, "but she's harmless." I should have stopped there. The house sat behind a tall iron gate at the end of a quiet street, 3 stories, stone walls. Huge windows that reflected the sky so clearly it felt like the house was watching me arrive. Inside, everything echoed. High ceilings, long hallways, marble floors that stayed cold even with the heat on. Beatrice was 9, small for her age, black hair cut straight across her forehead. She stood beside her mother without blinking, her hands folded like she was posing for a photo. "This is Bea," her mom said. "She keeps to herself." Bea stared at me, then smiled. "You don't look like her," she said. I laughed, nervous. "Like who?" "The other girl," she replied. "The one in the mirrors." Her mom waved it off instantly. "She's been saying that lately," she said. "Ignore it, she gets ideas." They showed me the house. Kitchen, living room, guest room, upstairs bedrooms. Every room had mirrors, big ones, old ones. Heavy frames with dark edges. I caught my reflection over and over, and every time it felt like I was seeing myself a second too late. Dinner was easy. Bea ate quietly, barely touching her food. When I asked what she wanted to do after, she said she wanted to play hide and seek. "Not in the mirrors," she added. I asked what she meant. "That's where she hides," Bea said. "She doesn't like when I tell." I changed the subject. Around 8, Bea asked to show me something. She led me upstairs to her room, pink walls, stuffed animals lined neatly on the bed, and a tall mirror across from it, floor to ceiling. No cracks, no dust, perfectly clean. Bea stood in front of it and waved. A second later, her reflection waved back. I know how that sounds. Of course it waved back, that's what reflections do, but the timing was off, just enough to notice. Bea smiled wider. "See," she said. "She's slow today." My stomach tightened. "Bea, step away from the mirror." "She can't come out unless someone lets her," Bea said. "But she tries." I moved the mirror's curtain closed. I didn't even remember noticing it had one. Bea frowned but didn't stop me. Later, when I tucked her into bed, she grabbed my wrist. "If you hear tapping," she whispered, "don't tap back." I slept on the couch that night. The house was too quiet upstairs, too big. Every sound echoed longer than it should have. Around midnight I heard tapping, soft, slow, from the hallway mirror. I stayed still. I counted my breaths. I told myself it was pipes or wood settling. The tapping came again, 3 taps, then a pause, then 3 more. It sounded like fingers on glass. I held my breath. Then I heard Bee's voice. "Stop," she whispered. It didn't sound like it came from upstairs. It sounded like it came from the mirror across the living room. And that's when the tapping turned into scratching. The scratching got louder, longer, like nails dragging slowly down glass. I kept my eyes shut, my whole body stiff, afraid that if I moved even a little, whatever was making that sound would know I was awake. Then the scratching stopped. The silence after it felt heavier than the noise. My ears rang. I finally opened my eyes and stared straight ahead at the mirror across the living room. Something was wrong. My reflection was there. Sitting on the couch, same hoodie, same messy hair, same scared look on my face, but it wasn't doing what I was doing. I was frozen. It was smiling. Slowly, the reflection lifted its hand and pressed its palm flat against the glass from the inside. The smile stretched wider than my face should be able to stretch. Its eyes stayed locked on mine, unblinking. I jumped to my feet and turned away, heart pounding so hard I thought I might pass out. I ran up the stairs two at a time, calling Bee's name. Her bedroom door was open. She was sitting up in bed, calm like she'd been waiting. "She's mad now," Bee said. "What do you mean, mad?" I whispered. "You almost answered her," Bee replied. "She heard you breathe." I grabbed Bee and pulled her out of bed. I didn't care if her mom would be upset. I didn't care about rules. I just wanted us out of that room. As we stepped into the hallway, every mirror along the wall started tapping at once. Not loud, not fast, all together. Tap, tap, tap. Bee covered her ears. "Don't look," she said. That's how she switches. I stared at the floor and rushed toward the stairs. In the corner of my vision, I saw movement, reflections leaning forward, smiles stretching, hands pressing from the wrong side of the glass. When we reached the front door, the tapping stopped. The mirrors went dark, like nothing had happened. I called Bee's mom with shaking hands. I didn't explain everything. I just said something was wrong and she needed to come home now. She didn't argue. She just said she was on her way. While we waited, Bee sat beside me on the floor, holding her knees. "She wasn't always bad," Bee said quietly. "She used to just copy me." I swallowed. "Copy you how?" "She wanted to be real," Bee replied, "but she learned other stuff." When her mom arrived, the house felt normal again, too normal. The mirrors reflected exactly what they should. No delays, no smiles. Before I left, Bee hugged me tight. "She likes you," she whispered. "That's not good." I never went back to that house. Weeks later, I found a news article online. The family had moved out suddenly. The house was being renovated. Workers reported multiple mirrors cracking on their own. One man quit after saying he saw someone blink when he didn't. I don't trust mirrors anymore. I cover them at night. I don't stand in front of them in the dark, and I never tap on glass. If this story kept you watching, make sure you like the video, share it with someone who loves real horror, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Because some reflections aren't copying you. They're practicing. I thought I was done after the mirrors. I really did. But fear doesn't pay bills, and when the call came in, I answered it without thinking too hard. The man on the phone sounded calm, too calm. He said he needed someone to watch his son for one night, just one. Easy job, good money. I told myself that calm was a good sign. It was. The house sat low to the ground like it was sinking. Old brick, one story. A narrow set of stairs led down the side of the house to a cellar door half hidden by weeds. I noticed it right away and felt that familiar twist in my stomach. The father opened the door before I could knock. He looked worn down, like sleep hadn't touched him in years. His eyes flicked past me, then back again, like he was checking to see if something followed me inside. "My son's name is Owen," he said. "He's 8, quiet. Easy kid." Behind him, Owen stood in the hallway, bare feet, pajama pants too short for his legs. He held a small flashlight even though all the lights were on. "Bedtime's at 9, the man continued. He doesn't need much, just don't let him go near the cellar. I paused. The cellar, the man's jaw tightened. It stays locked. Just keep him away from it. He didn't explain. He grabbed his keys and left like he was afraid to stay longer. Inside, the house felt heavy. Low ceilings, thick walls. The air smelled damp like dirt that never fully dried. Owen didn't speak. He just watched me from the hallway, gripping his flashlight like it mattered. I tried to act normal, asked about school. Favorite shows, favorite food. He didn't answer. He just turned and walked into the living room, sat on the floor, and clicked the flashlight on and off. I noticed the cellar door again. Wooden. Old. A thick padlock looped through the handle. Scratches covered the lower half of it, long ones, deep ones. Owen followed my eyes. She doesn't like the lock, he said quietly. My chest tightened. Who does? He clicked the flashlight once. The woman, I forced a laugh. What woman? The one who lives under us, Owen replied. She used to be my mom. I didn't laugh again. At 8:30, Owen stood up on his own and headed to his room. I followed. He climbed into bed and pulled the blanket up to his chin, never letting go of the flashlight. If you hear her knocking, he said, staring at the ceiling, don't answer. I nodded, even though my mouth had gone dry. I went back to the living room and sat as far from the cellar door as I could. I turned the TV on low just to have noise. My eyes kept drifting back to the lock, the scratches, the way the wood bowed inward like something had pushed against it too many times. At 9:14 the knocking started, 3 slow knocks from beneath the floor, not loud, not violent, patient. I froze, the TV kept playing, my heart pounded in my ears. The knocks came again, same rhythm, same place. Then Owen's door creaked open. He stood in the hallway, flashlight shaking in his hand. She knows you're here, he whispered. The lock on the cellar door rattled, once, twice, and then something on the other side whispered my name. My blood went cold the moment I heard my name. I hadn't told Owen my full name. I hadn't spoken it out loud in that house, and the voice that said it didn't come from above the floor. It came from underneath it. I stood up so fast the chair scraped loudly across the wood. The whisper stopped. The cellar went quiet again like it had never happened. Owen, I said softly, trying to keep my voice steady. Go back to your room. He shook his head. She won't stop now. The padlock rattled again, harder this time. The metal clanked against the door frame, sharp and loud. Dust fell from the ceiling with each hit. I backed away, heart slamming in my chest, and grabbed Owen's arm. We're going outside, I said. She can't go outside, Owen replied. But she can make you stay. The knocking turned into pounding, not fists, hands, flat, wet sounds like skin slapping against wood. The door bowed inward slightly. I could see it. The wood bending under pressure that shouldn't have been possible. I dragged Owen toward the front door. He didn't fight me. He just kept looking back over his shoulder, eyes wide but calm, like he'd seen this before. The pounding stopped the moment I touched the front door handle. Silence. Thick, heavy, wrong. I twisted the knob, nothing happened. The door wouldn't open. I tried again, harder, still nothing. No click, no movement, like it was sealed shut. Behind us, the cellar lock snapped. The sound was sharp, final, metal hitting the floor. Owen gasped. She's coming up, he whispered. The cellar door creaked, slowly. The smell hit first. Damp earth, mold, something sour and old. Like a basement that had been sealed for years and suddenly remembered how to breathe. A hand slid into view through the crack. Gray skin, swollen fingers, nails broken and black. I shoved Owen behind me and grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a heavy lamp from the side table. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped it. The door opened wider. I saw part of her face. Her hair was matted to her scalp. Her mouth hung open in a smile that looked stretched, painful. Her eyes were cloudy, but they locked onto me instantly. You're not her, the woman whispered. But you'll do, Owen screamed. That snapped me out of it. I grabbed him and ran toward the kitchen, yanking open the back door with all my strength. This one opened. Cold air rushed in and the woman shrieked. Not angry, hurt, like the sound burned her. I didn't look back. I ran until my lungs felt like fire, until the house disappeared behind trees and darkness. I called 911 while we were still moving, words tumbling out too fast to make sense. Police lights cut through the dark minutes later. They went back to the house while we waited in the yard wrapped in blankets. Owen didn't cry. He just stared at the ground, shaking. They searched the cellar. They found a mattress, old clothes, empty cans, scratches on the walls. They found bones, human bones. They said the woman had died years ago, that she was Owen's mother, that the father had sealed the cellar after she got sick and refused help, that he'd told himself she was gone even while she stayed down there. They never found her body. The cellar was empty when they went back down. The father never came home that night. Owen was taken away in the back of a police car, holding his flashlight like it was the only thing keeping him together. Before they closed the door, he looked at me. "She doesn't like being alone," he said. "She'll find another house." I still think about that cellar sometimes, about the sound of that lock snapping, about the way she said my name like she already knew me. If this story got under your skin, make sure you like the video, share it with someone who loves real horror, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. Because some doors are locked for a reason, and some things never stay buried. After Owen, I stopped telling myself these things were coincidences. There was a pattern. I didn't want to see it, but it was there. Kids weren't imagining things. They were warning me. And every time I ignored that warning, something bad followed. So when the next call came in, I almost didn't answer. It was a couple named Mark and Denise. They lived outside town, past the highway, near a stretch of woods people avoided after dark. They said they needed a sitter for just a few hours. Their regular sitter had quit suddenly. No explanation. That should have been enough. But the money was good, and they sounded normal. Tired but normal. The house was newer than the others. 2 stories, white siding, clean yard, nothing about it screamed danger. That almost made it worse. Like whatever lived there didn't need an old house to survive. Their son's name was Tyler. He was 10, taller than most kids his age, quiet but not shy. He shook my hand when I arrived and looked me straight in the eye. "You won't stay upstairs after 9, he said. I laughed a little. "Why not?" "Because that's when it gets loud," he replied. Mark cleared his throat fast. "Tyler's got a big imagination," he said. "Just keep him busy, TV, games, whatever, he'll be fine." Denise knelt in front of Tyler. "You remember the rules," she said gently. Tyler nodded. "Don't answer it, don't look at it, don't tell it my name." My chest tightened. "Tell what?" Denise stood up quickly. "Nothing. We'll be back by midnight." They left before I could ask more. Inside, the house felt normal at first. Warm, bright. The kind of place people posted online to show how perfect their life was. Tyler played video games and talked a little once he relaxed. About school, about friends, about how much he hated bedtime. At 8:45, he paused the game and looked at the stairs. "It's almost time," he said. "Time for bed?" I asked. He shook his head. "Time to go downstairs," I frowned. "Why downstairs?" He didn't answer. He just stood up and grabbed a blanket from the couch. I followed him down into the basement. It wasn't finished. Concrete walls, one bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, boxes stacked along one wall. At the far end stood a door I hadn't noticed before. Tall, narrow, painted the same color as the wall. Tyler sat on the floor facing it. "This is where we wait," he said. My pulse picked up. Wait for what? For it to calm down. At exactly 9 o'clock, the lights flickered. Then the noise started, a deep thump from behind the door, like something heavy shifting its weight. The sound traveled through the floor, up the walls, into my bones. I stepped back. "Tyler, we should go upstairs." He grabbed my wrist. "No," he whispered. "That's how it hears you." The thumping came again, stronger. The door shook slightly in its frame. "What's in there?" I asked. Tyler swallowed. "It doesn't like being alone." The bulb overhead flickered harder, casting shadows that moved when nothing else did. I could hear breathing now. Slow, wet, right on the other side of the door. I tried to pull my arm free, but Tyler held on tighter. "If you leave," he said, voice shaking, "it follows." The breathing stopped. The house went silent, then something spoke, not loud, not angry. "Curious, is there someone new?" The voice didn't sound like a child. It didn't sound like an adult either. It sounded unfinished. I felt my knees weaken. Tyler pressed his face into the blanket. "Don't answer," he whispered, "please." The doorknob turned, just a little, enough to let me know it could open if it wanted to. I backed away, heart racing, eyes locked on that door, praying Mark and Denise would come home early. Because whatever was behind it already knew I was there, and it was listening. The doorknob stopped turning, but I didn't relax. That was the mistake people always make. They think quiet means safe. In that basement, silence felt worse than the noise. Like whatever was behind the door was thinking, listening, deciding. Tyler stayed frozen beside me, his fingers digging into my sleeve. His breathing was shallow, controlled, like he'd practiced staying quiet more times than a kid ever should. "Has it ever come out?" I whispered. He shook his head slowly. "Not when we do it right." "What's right?" I asked. He swallowed. "We don't move, we don't talk, we don't look at the door." The bulb flickered again. The shadows stretched and pulled back like they were alive. From the other side of the door came a soft, dragging sound. Not footsteps, more like something being pulled across the floor. Then the voice came back, closer. "I can smell you." My stomach dropped. The words sounded wrong, like they were being tested for the first time. Each one came out slow, stretched, like it was learning how to talk by copying people it had heard. Tyler squeezed his eyes shut. "It's guessing," he whispered. "Don't let it be right." I took a step back without thinking. The door rattled violently. The knob jerked hard to the left, then the right. The metal screamed against the frame. Dust fell from the ceiling. Tyler let out a small cry before clamping his hands over his mouth. "Mark and Denise said you'd be alone tonight," the voice said. "You lied." "I didn't say anything," I whispered before I could stop myself. The moment the words left my mouth, I knew I'd messed up. The basement went dead quiet. Tyler's eyes flew open. "You answered," he said, panic flooding his face. The doorknob stopped moving. Slowly, carefully, the door opened a crack, just enough for me to see darkness inside. Thick, heavy. Like light didn't work the same way in there. Something breathed. Hot air spilled out, carrying a smell like wet fur and rust. A shape pressed against the opening, not fully visible. Too tall to fit right. "I knew it," the voice said, softer now, happier. "There is someone new," Tyler screamed. That broke whatever spell was holding me in place. I grabbed him and ran for the stairs, my shoes slipping on concrete as the door behind us burst open with a sound like wood snapping in half. Something moved fast, too fast. The basement lights went out. We hit the stairs and tumbled upward, Tyler crying, me barely keeping my balance. Behind us, something climbed, not using the stairs, using the wall. Its hands slapped against the concrete, nails scraping. I slammed the basement door shut and threw my weight against it. The door bowed instantly. "Please," the voice said from the other side. "I just want to see you." The handle twisted violently. The hinges creaked. I could feel the door pushing back against me like it was breathing. I grabbed Tyler's hand and ran upstairs. The house felt different now. Smaller, tight, like it was closing in on us. We ran past the living room, the kitchen, straight for the front door. Locked. Of course it was locked. Behind us, the basement door exploded open. Heavy footsteps pounded across the floor. The walls shook. Tyler sobbed and buried his face in my side as I yanked at the lock with shaking hands. The lights flickered on and off. "I don't want to be alone," the thing said. "They leave me every night." The lock finally clicked. I flung the door open and dragged Tyler outside, falling onto the front lawn as cold air hit us like a wave. The footsteps stopped instantly. The house went silent. No screaming, no crashing, nothing. Like it was never there. We ran to the neighbor's house barefoot, pounding on the door until someone answered and called the police. Tyler didn't stop shaking. He didn't say another word. When Mark and Denise arrived later, they didn't look surprised. They just looked tired. The police searched the house, the basement door, the hidden room behind it. They found deep gouges in the concrete walls, long marks like claws, too big to be from any animal they could name. They asked questions. Mark and Denise didn't answer most of them. They moved out 2 weeks later. The house went up for sale, then off the market, then empty. Tyler never came back. Sometimes I think about that voice. About the way it said it didn't want to be alone. About how it knew their names. About how calm the parents were. If this story kept you watching, make sure you like the video. Share it with someone who loves real horror. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next. Because some families don't lock things away to protect others. They do it to survive. The call came 3 years after I swore I was done. I was 22, living in a tiny apartment with thin walls and a heater that screamed all night. Money was tight. Rent was late. When my phone buzzed with an unknown number, I almost ignored it. Almost. The woman on the line sounded calm. Too calm. She said her name was Marin Holt. She said she lived outside town near the old water tower. She said she needed someone for one night only. I don't babysit anymore, I told her. There was a pause, not silence. Breathing. You watch Tyler, she said gently. My stomach dropped. How do you know that? I asked. Another pause, then my son knows things. I should have hung up. I didn't. The pay was high, too high. Enough to erase the knot in my chest just a little. I told myself it was one night, one quiet kid, one safe house. I drove out just before sunset. The road thinned to gravel. Trees leaned in close, their branches tangling overhead. The house sat alone, low and wide, with only one light on inside. Marin opened the door before I knocked. She looked tired, not sleepy tired. Worn down tired, like someone who hadn't felt safe in a long time. He's 7, she said. Name's Eli, he doesn't lie. That was a strange thing to say about a child. Eli stood behind her, half hidden. He had dark hair and eyes that didn't blink enough. He stared at me like he was measuring something. You came, he said. Yes, I replied. Just for tonight, he nodded. That's what they all say. The house was clean but bare. No pictures, no clutter, just walls and corners, lots of corners. Marin handed me a list. Bedtime, snacks. Emergency numbers. At the bottom, written in shaky pen, was one line. Do not open the spare bedroom door. I'll be back by midnight, she said. If he tells you to leave early, listen. She didn't wait for my response. The door closed. Her car faded down the road. Eli sat on the couch and turned on the TV. The volume stayed low. Who stayed in the spare room? I asked. He didn't look at me. No one, he said. That's why it's angry. Something tapped softly from down the hall, once, then twice. Eli leaned closer and whispered, It knows you heard it. I didn't answer him. I kept my eyes on the TV, even though I had no idea what was playing. My ears were locked on that hallway. The spare bedroom door sat at the end, slightly darker than the rest, like the light refused to touch it. The tapping came again. 3 times now, slow, careful, like someone testing my patience. What happens if it opens? I asked quietly. Eli shrugged. It tries to switch. Switch what? Places, he said. With me or with you, it doesn't care which. My throat went dry. Why hasn't it already? Because it needs permission, Eli said, or weakness. The hallway light flickered. I stood up. Eli, we're leaving right now. He didn't fight me. That scared me more than if he had. He stood, grabbed my hand, and squeezed it too hard for a 7-year-old. It won't like that, he said. We took 2 steps toward the front door when the spare bedroom door clicked. Unlocked, I froze, the air changed. Not colder, thicker, like breathing through wet cloth. From inside the room came a sound that wasn't footsteps but movement, dragging, adjusting, like something standing up after being folded wrong for a long time. Eli buried his face in my side. "Don't look," he whispered. "It copies what you see." The door creaked open an inch. Then, two, a smell drifted out. Old sweat, dust, something sour. A voice followed, soft, familiar. It sounded like my own. "Eli," it said, "come here." My heart slammed so hard I thought I might pass out. "That's not me," I whispered. "I know," Eli said. "It does that." The door opened wider. I saw a hand first, too long, fingers bent at odd angles like they'd healed wrong. The skin looked stretched, pulled tight over bone, almost shiny. Then a shoulder, then a face. It had my eyes. My mouth, but the smile was wrong, too wide, too eager. "I'm tired of waiting," it said. "You promised." I backed toward the front door, fumbling for the lock. The thing stepped fully into the hallway. Its body didn't move right, like it was learning how as it went. Eli screamed. The sound broke whatever spell had me frozen. I yanked the door open, grabbed him, and ran. The porch light burst as we crossed it. Glass shattered under my feet. The night air hit us hard. Behind us the house screamed. Not the thing, the house. Wood cracked, windows rattled. That voice echoed from every direction at once. "You can't take him." I didn't stop running. I didn't look back. I didn't breathe until we hit the road. Headlights appeared out of nowhere, blinding me. A car skidded to a stop. Marin jumped out, eyes wild. She took Eli from me without a word and held him tight. "It tried," she said, not a question. "He tried to switch," I replied, shaking so hard my teeth hurt. She nodded. "It always does." Police lights came later. So did questions. So did silence when the spare room was opened and found empty. No signs. No damage. Just a room with no windows and deep scratches in the floor, like something had been dragged in circles for years. Marin moved the next day. The house was boarded up a week later. I don't know where Eli is now. I don't know if it followed. But sometimes late at night when my apartment goes quiet, I hear a tapping. Once, twice, 3 times, and I never ever answer. I tried to move on after that. I really did. I changed my number. I stopped answering unknown calls. I told myself that whatever was happening had finally let go, that I was done being pulled into other people's nightmares. For a while, it worked. Then the messages started. Not calls, messages. No sender name, no number, just short lines that showed up late at night. "You still hear them, don't you?" I blocked the first one. The second said, "They remember you." The third came with a photo. It was grainy and dark. A hallway, narrow, familiar, a door at the end. I deleted it and sat there shaking, telling myself it was a prank. Someone messing with me. That had to be it. 2 nights later, someone knocked on my apartment door. 3 times, slow, even. I didn't answer. The knocks didn't come again. The next morning, there was an envelope on my doormat. No stamp, no name. Inside was a folded flyer. Babysitter needed. 1 night only. Cash paid. Discretion required. At the bottom was an address. I knew it. I don't mean I recognized it. I mean I felt asterisk it, like my body knew before my brain caught up. I burned the flyer in my sink. That should have been the end. A week later, my cousin Jess called me. We weren't close, but she sounded stressed. Said her friend was desperate. Said it was just one kid. Said she told them I was good with difficult children. I told her no. She begged. I said no again. Then she said the address, same one from the flyer. My hands went cold. "You already talked to them," I said. Jess hesitated. "They said they reached out before, that you didn't answer." I didn't sleep that night. I drove there the next evening anyway. I still don't know why. The house sat at the end of a dead road boxed in by trees. Not old, not new, just blank, like it had been built and forgotten. A woman answered the door, late 30s. Hair pulled tight, eyes tired in a way I recognized. "You came," she said. I shouldn't have, I replied. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. No one ever should. Her son was named Caleb. 9 years old, skinny, quiet. He didn't look scared, he looked resigned. She doesn't hurt you, he said to me. She just watches. The woman flinched. Caleb don't. She's in the vents, he continued calmly, and in the mirrors and sometimes in people. I didn't ask who she was, I already knew. Rules were taped to the fridge, printed, neat. 1. No mirrors after dark. 2. Keep music playing. Always. 3. If Caleb asks to leave, you leave. 4. Do not respond if you hear your name called. At the bottom in bold was one line. If she speaks to you, do not answer. She learns fast. The woman grabbed her keys. Back by midnight, she said. If I'm late, don't wait. The door closed. Music played softly from a speaker in the living room, some pop station. Caleb sat cross-legged on the floor, drawing. What does she want? I asked him. He didn't look up. To be noticed. The air shifted. Not a sound, a pressure, like something leaning closer. Caleb's crayon snapped in half. She's happy you came, he whispered. The music skipped. Then it shut off. I lunged for the speaker and turned it back on, volume higher. My heart was hammering. Good, Caleb said. That helps. At 9:18 I heard my name, clear, right behind me. I didn't turn around. Caleb stood slowly. Don't move, he said. She's checking. The mirror above the hallway table fogged over. A shape pressed against the glass from the inside. I closed my eyes. She doesn't like when you ignore her, Caleb said softly. But she hates when you look. The mirror cracked. Just a thin line down the center. The music blasted louder on its own, jumping tracks, voices overlapping. The house vibrated like it was holding its breath. Time to go, Caleb said. I grabbed his hand. The front door wouldn't open. Behind us, the mirror shattered. Something laughed, and it sounded a lot like relief. The front door finally gave way with a loud crack, not because I forced it, because something else let it. Cold air rushed in, sharp and fast, like the house had been sealed shut for years and just took its first breath. I didn't stop to think. I pulled Caleb with me and ran. The porch light exploded as we crossed it. Glass burst outward and rained behind us. From inside the house came a sound that wasn't a scream, not exactly. It was more like a gasp. Like something had been caught off guard. We didn't slow down until we reached the street. Caleb bent over, hands on his knees, breathing hard. I looked back once. The house looked normal again. Lights on, music playing faintly through a broken window. Calm, still, too still. Police arrived 20 minutes later. Caleb's mom showed up after that, crying and apologizing and saying the same thing over and over. She promised she'd behave, she kept saying. She said she just wanted to be seen. The police found nothing. No broken mirrors, no vents disturbed, no signs of forced entry, just a house with fingerprints on the inside of the glass. Too many. Overlapping, like someone had pressed their hands there again and again. I left before they finished asking questions. I didn't babysit after that. I didn't even talk about it. But the truth is, it didn't end there. It never does. Because once something notices you, really notices you, it doesn't forget. Weeks passed, then months. No calls, no messages, no flyers. I started to relax. That's when I noticed the silence. Not quiet, silence. The wrong kind. The kind that presses in on your ears. The kind that feels heavy like it is weight. It started happening late at night. The heater would shut off. My phone would lose signal. Even the hum of the fridge would fade. And in that silence, I'd feel it. Watching, not from one place. From everywhere. Corners, reflections, dark screens. Waiting, I learned fast. I kept music playing all the time, slept with lights on. Covered every mirror in my apartment. Even the bathroom one. It helped mostly. Then one night my phone buzzed. A message. Unknown sender, you did good this time. My hands went numb. Another message followed, but she still remembers you. I deleted them and threw my phone across the room. It buzzed again. You hear us now. I didn't sleep. The next morning there was a package outside my door, no return address. Inside was a drawing. A stick figure woman, long arms, no eyes, a smile drawn too wide, around her stood children, and off to the side drawn smaller was me. I moved that week. New city, new apartment, new job. No babysitting. No kids, no quiet houses. I thought distance might help. I was wrong because it's not about the house. It never was. It's about attention, about being seen, about being heard. And once you've listened, even by accident, something listens back. Sometimes when the world goes quiet, I still hear it. A breath where there shouldn't be one. A whisper just behind my name. I don't answer, I don't turn around. I keep the noise going because kids weren't lying. They were surviving. And if you're listening to this right now, if this story made your chest feel tight or your room feel a little too quiet, do me a favor. Like the video, share it, subscribe, keep these stories alive. Because the worst thing you can do is let them fade into silence. I thought the noise would save me. Music, podcasts, TV playing all night. Even when I slept, something was always talking. Always moving. I told myself silence was the enemy, and as long as I didn't give it that, I'd be fine. For a while, that worked. Then the noise started changing. Songs would skip at the same line. Over and over. Podcasts would pause by themselves right before a sentence finished. The TV would lower its volume slowly like someone was turning an invisible knob. I'd turn it back up. Every time. One night I woke up to clapping. Slow, soft, right inside my apartment. I sat straight up in bed, heart racing. The lights were on, the TV was still playing, nothing looked wrong. The clapping stopped. I didn't move, didn't breathe. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Unknown sender. Good job, my stomach dropped. Another buzz, you're learning, I didn't reply. I powered the phone off and shoved it under my pillow like that would help. The TV froze. The screen glitched, stretching faces into long, warped shapes. The sound twisted into a low hum that rattled my teeth. Then the screen went black. In the reflection, I saw someone standing behind me. Not clear, not sharp, like a smudge shaped like a person. I shut my eyes. I remembered the rules, all of them, every house, every kid. Same patterns, same warnings, don't look, don't answer, don't react. So I stayed still. The bed dipped slightly like someone had sat down. Cold air brushed my neck. A voice leaned close to my ear, not loud, not angry, curious. Do you know what happens when no one listens anymore? I didn't answer. The pressure on the bed grew heavier. My chest felt tight, like something was pushing down from the inside. Kids listen, the voice said. They always do. My ears rang, images flashed in my head. Eli, Caleb, the hallway, the mirror. Hands pressed against glass, fingers too long, smiles too wide. The bed suddenly lifted, just an inch, then dropped. I gasped. The sound escaped me before I could stop it. The room went dead quiet. No hum, no buzz, no distant city noise. Silence. Pure and thick and crushing, I felt it smile. There you are, the voice said. The lights exploded all at once. Bulbs popped, glass shattered, darkness swallowed the room. I scrambled off the bed and ran, slamming into furniture I couldn't see. My shoulder hit the wall hard enough to make stars burst in my vision. I reached the door and yanked it open. The hallway outside was wrong, too long, too narrow. The walls bent inward slightly like they were breathing. At the far end stood a door that wasn't there before, the spare bedroom door. I slammed my apartment door shut and locked it, hands shaking so bad I could barely get the bolt in. The knocking started immediately, 3 times, slow, even. I slid down the door and covered my ears. The knocking moved, not on the door anymore, on the walls, on the ceiling, on the floor beneath me, like it was circling. Just listen, it said from everywhere at once. That's all I ever wanted. My phone turned on by itself. The screen lit up. A live video, me, sitting on the floor, crying, but the angle was wrong. Too high, like it was being filmed from the ceiling. I threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and cracked, but the screen stayed on. The video smiled. Not me, something wearing me. I crawled to the bathroom and locked myself inside. I turned on the shower full blast. Hot water, loud, constant. Steam filled the room. The mirror started to fog. Words appeared slowly, like someone writing with a finger from the other side. "We hear you now," I screamed. The sound broke the mirror clean in half. The silence rushed back in. And in that silence I finally understood. It wasn't haunting houses. It was collecting voices. And once it had yours, it never needed the house again. I don't remember how long I stayed locked in that bathroom. Time didn't work right anymore. Minutes stretched. Seconds vanished. The shower kept running, loud and steady, like it was the only thing holding the room together. Eventually, the water went cold. I didn't turn it off. I couldn't move. When the silence finally crept back in, it didn't rush. It waited, patient, like it knew I was too tired to fight. That's when I heard it, breathing, not mine. It came from the other side of the door. Slow, careful, like it was trying not to scare me. "You did so good," it whispered. "You stayed loud for so long." My hands shook as I pressed them over my ears. "I just want to finish the story," it said. "People hate unfinished stories." The bathroom light flickered. Once, twice. Then it stayed on. I don't know what broke inside me at that moment. Maybe fear, maybe exhaustion, maybe the need to understand. I unlocked the door. The hallway was normal again. Same carpet, same walls, same boring apartment smell. No bending, no extra doors. I stepped out slowly. My living room looked untouched, TV off, phone shattered on the floor, couch where I left it, nothing watching, nothing waiting. I laughed. A short, shaky laugh that sounded wrong in my own ears. "That's it," I said out loud. "You're done." The air shifted, right behind me. "You finally said something," it replied. I froze. I didn't turn around, didn't need to. I could feel it close. So close I could sense its shape without seeing it. Tall, thin, folded wrong. "You listened," it said softly. "You spoke." "That's how it works." My mouth felt dry. "What do you want?" There was a pause. Then almost shyly it said, "To be shared." The lights came back on all at once. The TV snapped to life. Static filled the screen, then cleared. I was on it, sitting on my couch, telling this story, word for word, my stomach twisted. On the screen I leaned forward and smiled. That same wrong smile. "Too wide, too practiced. People love these," the thing said behind me. "Stories that crawl under the skin, stories that make them listen closely." The screen changed. Comments scrolled by. I couldn't read names, just reactions. "That's creepy." "Why does my room feel quiet now?" "I swear I heard something." Each comment made the air feel thicker. "Hearts," it continued. "Views, shares. Every sound they make feeds it." "Feeds you," I whispered. "Yes," it said, pleased. "And you." The realization hit me like ice water. This wasn't haunting anymore. This was broadcasting. I ran. Out the front door, down the stairs, into the street. I didn't care who saw me. I didn't care if I looked crazy. I needed noise, people, cars, voices. The city was loud. Horns, music, shouting. Sirens in the distance. For the first time in weeks I could breathe. I didn't go back. I slept in my car that night with the radio on full blast. Talk shows, commercials, anything, everything. Morning came. Sunlight, normal sounds, normal world. I checked my phone. The screen was cracked, but it worked. I had notifications. Thousands. The video was live, still streaming me. Even though I wasn't there. I watched for exactly 3 seconds before throwing the phone onto the pavement. I don't know how many people heard it. I don't know how many listened. I only know this. You don't need a haunted house. You don't need a dark hallway or a locked room. All you need is quiet and curiosity. That's why I'm telling you this now, out loud, with noise around you. If you're watching this and your room feels too still, turn something on. Music, TV, anything. And if this story made you lean in closer, made you listen just a little harder, don't keep it to yourself. Like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel. Because the more noise we make together, the harder it is for anything else to be heard. And trust me, you don't want to know what happens when the story finishes and no one is listening anymore. After that night, I stopped trusting reality. Not in a dramatic way, not like I thought everything was fake. It was worse than that. Things looked normal, sounded normal, but I never felt alone again. Crowded places became my safe spots. I worked from cafes, slept with the TV on in cheap motels, took buses instead of ride shares just to hear people talk. Even strangers arguing felt comforting. Noise meant safety. Silence meant attention. I learned patterns, small ones, easy to miss if you weren't looking. Whenever a room went quiet for more than a few seconds, my ears would ring, not loud, just enough to notice. Whenever someone around me paused mid-sentence, I felt pressure behind my eyes, like something leaning forward, waiting. One afternoon in a diner packed with people, a kid at the next booth looked straight at me. He couldn't have been older than 8. He stared for a long time, too long. Then he smiled. Not a happy smile, a knowing one. "She likes your story," he said. My fork clattered onto the plate. His mom laughed nervously. "Sorry," she said. "He says weird stuff sometimes." The kid never broke eye contact. "She says you tell it better now," he added. I stood up so fast my chair fell backward. I didn't finish my food. I didn't look back. That night I searched for answers. Not ghost stories, not forums, real records, old police reports, missing person cases, fires, evictions, anything connected to strange behavior. To kids saying things adults ignored. The same details kept showing up. People who worked with children, babysitters, teachers, tutors, camp counselors. People who stayed quiet with kids for long periods, people who listened. Some of them vanished, others didn't. They changed. Neighbors described them as distracted, always playing music, talking to themselves, avoiding mirrors, avoiding questions. One report stood out: 20 years old, small town, babysitter, found wandering a highway at dawn barefoot, bleeding from the ears. When asked what happened, she only said one thing: "It learned my voice." After that, I stopped running. I started fighting, not directly. I knew better than that. You don't fight something like this head on. You drown it out. You bury it. I talked all the time to anyone: cashiers, drivers, bartenders, people online. I told stories, jokes, random thoughts. I filled every gap with sound. At night, I recorded myself talking and played it back while I slept. My own voice layered over itself like a shield. It helped, until it didn't. One evening, while walking home through a busy street, everything went quiet. Not slowly. Instantly. Cars froze mid-motion. People stopped talking. Even the wind died. I stood there, heart pounding, surrounded by frozen faces. Then everyone turned toward me at once. Mouths opened together, and in perfect unison they said my name. I ran. Sound snapped back like a rubber band. Cars honked. People shouted. Someone cursed at me for bumping into them. No one else noticed. I ducked into an alley and slid down the wall, shaking. That's when I realized the truth. It wasn't trapped anymore. It didn't need houses. It didn't need mirrors. It didn't even need kids. It had learned something better. It learned how to wait, how to blend in, how to use curiosity. Stories weren't just feeding it. They were teaching it. Every retelling made it sharper, faster, more patient. And now it didn't just listen. It spoke back. I felt it then, clearer than ever before. Not behind me, not above me. Inside the noise itself. Every laugh, every whisper, every paused breath. It wasn't chasing me. It was walking beside me. And it was very, very interested in who would listen next. I tried one last thing. I went quiet on purpose. Not all at once. Not enough to panic. Just small spaces. Tiny gaps between sounds. I wanted to see what would happen if I didn't run from it, if I didn't feed it non-stop noise. The first day was fine. The second day felt heavy. By the third night, my apartment felt crowded, even though I was alone. Every sound felt louder because of what followed it. The space after a footstep, the pause after a breath, the moment when a song ends before the next one starts. That space was where it lived. I sat on my couch with the TV off and the lights on. My heart beat so loud I could hear it in my ears. I counted my breaths to stay calm. 1, 2, 3. The air shifted. I didn't hear it move. I felt it lean in like pressure on my skin. So, it said softly, not from one place but from all around me. You finally stopped running. I swallowed. My mouth felt dry, but I spoke anyway. What happens if I stop listening? There was a pause, a real one. It felt confused. If you stop, it said slowly, I fade. Hope flickered in my chest. But it added, so do you. The lights dimmed just a little. You think noise keeps you safe, it continued. But silence is part of you too. You can't cut it out without cutting yourself. Images flooded my head. Nights alone, empty rooms, long drives, all the quiet moments that made me human. You were never supposed to live without silence, it said. You were supposed to share it. The TV turned on by itself. Not static, not a show. A live feed, people, bedrooms, living rooms. Phones glowing in the dark, faces watching, listening. I recognized some of them. Comments scrolled fast, reactions, emojis, fear, curiosity. Each one made the room feel tighter. They're listening right now, it said. Can you feel that? I could. A buzz in my chest, a warmth in my throat, like standing on a stage I never asked for. This is what you're good at, it whispered. You make them lean in. I shook my head. I won't help you. It didn't sound angry, it sounded amused. You already are. The feed zoomed in on one face. A kid, young, alone, sitting on a bed with the lights off, eyes wide, listening hard, my stomach twisted. Stop, I said. The image changed to another. Then another, different places, same look, curiosity, fear, attention. I understood then. It didn't need me to speak. It needed me to be heard. I stepped closer to the TV. My reflection stared back at me, layered over the images. Tired, pale, eyes too alert. If I disappear, I said quietly, you lose this. There was a long pause. The longest yet. You would be missed, it said, by them. The feed flickered. The room felt lighter. I took a breath. Then let them miss me. I reached behind the TV and pulled the cord from the wall. The screen went black. The lights snapped off. Total darkness, total silence. For one terrifying second, I thought I'd made the worst mistake of my life. Then I heard it. Not a voice, not a whisper. A sound like air rushing out of a room, like something deflating, fading. The pressure lifted. I turned the lights back on. Nothing was there. No screens, no shadows, no weight in the air, just me, alone. I laughed. Then I cried. Then I sat on the floor until morning came. I don't know if I killed it. I don't know if that's even possible, but I know this. It needs attention. It needs people to listen. And the moment you stop leaning in, stop holding your breath, stop giving it that space, it weakens. That's why I'm telling you this clearly. Not in a whisper, not in the dark. If you made it this far, if you felt that pull to keep listening, to hear just one more part, don't do it alone. Make noise. Talk to someone. Turn on a light. And yeah, like the video, share it and subscribe to the channel. Not because it helps me, because it fills the space. And the less empty space there is, the harder it is for anything else to crawl inside and wait for you to listen.